Welcome to the Modern Seniors Podcast, and welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Neil.
I'm Ami.
We are longtime friends, here to share real stories, have some laughs, and navigate life with curiosity. Let's use and share whatever wisdom we've stored up now. We are so grateful to have you with us. Hit that subscribe and like button, and let's dive in. This morning we have a special guest, and I'll tell a little story by way of introduction. It was about 7 or 8 months ago. I was attending a class to learn about diabetes cooking for my wife, and I noticed that there was a dinner or a lunch being hosted by the Kerrisdale Senior Center. And it dawned on me, hey, I just turned 64. Maybe I should check this out. I walked down the hall, and it was a very friendly and inviting area, but a little intimidating, until I walked in and sat down at the table next to David, who introduced himself and introduced me to his book, the companions at the table, and really welcomed me into a nice warm circle of friends. I'm very happy to have you here today, David. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Neil. Nice to see you again. And you too, Ami.
Thank you, David.
Now, David has some unusual attributes, I think, which will come out during this interview. One of which is that he, at the age of 20 or thereabouts, decided to travel around the world and live in different places. And this was back in the 1960s, which some of us may recall was a very turbulent and interesting time to be alive, let alone to travel the world. David, can you tell us what got you started on that journey? What launched you?
Well, I had a very interesting boyhood in England during the war. I was born just a few weeks before the war and was evacuated like many small British kids, young British kids, to the county of Yorkshire, where I spent a couple of years, came back to my hometown, which was in Romford, Essex, and spent the rest of my time up until the age of 12 in that part of southern England. But we then got, my dad was in the army like many, he was a soldier. He was also a former London bus driver. And anyway, at the end of the war, like many men, he needed a job. And he was lucky enough to join what used to be called the CCG, which is the CCG, Controlled Commission of Germany. The Americans, the French, and the Russians had something similar, but our government department was called CCG. And my dad managed to wangle or get a job with them, and he became a transport supervisor, moving VIPs around when they visited, and also looking after confidential material.
What a fascinating occupation.
Holidays in Germany, a couple of holidays in Germany, different times. My dad invited the family to move from our original English home to where he was stationed, which was the city of Berlin, which was then known as the Divided City, and controlled by the British, French, Americans, and Russians. And we got very, very lucky, merely because we were on the side that won the war. And we got to live in a very nice house, a large house in a very quiet, charming area of Berlin. And that's where we lived for the next several years. And during that time, we got to know Berlin very well. And my dad loved to go sightseeing. So every Sunday after church, we all piled into the family car, which was, of course, a Volkswagen. Every car was a Volkswagen, and the only two colors they had in those days was either gray or black, unlike today when you get every color under the sun.
Yeah.
And every Sunday afternoon, all of us, the five of us, my brother, sister, and parents and myself, we would go sightseeing in and around Berlin, which is an intriguing city at the best of times. We occasionally visited East Berlin, which was controlled by the Russians, and in the early 1950s, it was massive rubble. But the West was very quick to recover and rebuild, and we went to all kinds of places. We went to just churches, monasteries, markets, anywhere that my dad thought may be interesting. And in the summer holidays, we went even further. We went to different parts of Europe, Switzerland, France, and Germany, to be specific. And all of this, of course, for a young man, teenager, excuse me, I spent most of my teenage years in Germany, was very exciting to a young guy, all very new and inspiring, exciting, exhilarating, you name it. And on top of all this, I was packed off with my sister to a boarding school in northern Germany, a place called Wilhelmshaven, formerly a very large German port, particularly for their warships during the war. And they converted a seaman's naval base into schools, a complete school with they used it as it was made. Like the dormitories were already there, the playing fields were already there, where we played athletics, and that's where my sister and I went for the next 5 years. A British co-ed boarding school in Wilhelmshaven, Germany, which meant more traveling because it was about 150 miles, I think, and there was even a school train. And anyway, I became very, very excited seeing all this at my age, and I developed a massive wanderlust. I wanted to see more. I couldn't see enough of the world. I just had a taste of it, and I liked it very much. So that was the beginning of my carefree traveling days.
Not
David, what I really love about your story, the first time I met you, I heard about the global journey of yours, but I don't think I have heard of this particular background, in a sense that it's so beautiful. So when I first met you, you are a very unassuming person. And this is what we love about the modern seniors, because when you meet with people, you don't see their background, their history. And when you're sharing this, I'm just like, wow, how you actually started your wanderlust is from that trips your dad took you and your siblings, and it's so wonderful to hear it. I just wanted to share this, how appreciative we are to hear your background and your story. So thank you for sharing that.
absolutely. And I wanted to jump to the next phase, which before you started on your long journey, you decided to enter the national services. And I just wanted you to remind me why you made that decision and how that affected you.
Well, after boarding school, I went back to the UK. My parents eventually left there too, and I was called up by the British Army. We then had, in those days, we had what was called national service. Many countries still apply this, but it has since been many years ago that they stopped doing it. But anyway, so I was called up by Her Majesty's service, on Her Majesty's service, that buff envelope inviting me, telling me, in fact, to join the British Army, which I did for a period of just under 2 years, because when I did leave, they were in the process of winding it up. So, and I was sent to Northern Ireland, where I spent 17 very happy months, despite all the issues and problems in Northern Ireland. And ironically, the battalion, my regiment, was sent to Berlin. where I'd already spent several years. So it was quite amazing. Of all the places the British Army could have sent me, such exotic places like Cyprus or Hong Kong and Malta, they sent me back to Berlin. But I didn't mind because I really enjoyed living in Berlin, so it didn't matter. And so I spent 2 years in the British Army, made some very good friends, as one does in all the services, I'm quite sure. And 3 very good friends, and we saw a lot of each other when we were square bashing and on the rifle range and doing all kinds of soldier things. And we remained good friends when we were demobilized at the end of 2 years. And we met quite often to go to a dance or to a pub or to a coffee shop. And yes, as I said, we were very good friends. And slowly but surely, I started developing this feeling I really wanted to do something with my life. And I was now, by the way, a sales rep for Nestle. I joined the Nestle company, an international confectionery company. And but it wasn't quite what I needed or wanted. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel further. I tasted a little bit of seeing different and sometimes exotic places, exotic to me anyway, a young man from the suburbs of London. And I wanted, much, much more. So it was during one occasion, I think we'd been to a pub, and I was with my 3 friends, or at least 2 of them. And I put it to one who I thought was, sensitive to my way of thinking. And I said, half jokingly, half seriously, I'm going to put a question to you. Would you be prepared to join me on a tour around the world? Well, you can imagine, he just laughed his head off,
David,
No way.
I wanted to give a little bit of context. How old were you when all of this happened?
Very good. I was 21 when I started asking my friend Peter and my other 2 friends, because there were 4 of us originally, and finished national service. I was a sales rep for Nestle, but I wanted more out of life. So yes, I was now 23 years old. Peter, after realizing I was deadly serious, and after I mentioned it probably 20 times at different meetings, he finally relented, especially when I said what a tremendous challenge this would be. And that his eyes lit up then, and he finally got the message. And shortly after, I signed up, so to speak, my 2 other friends. And that's how it all began. An idea that I wanted to see the world and travel the world, and I wanted to do it with friends. However, that situation did change, as I'll tell you more a little later.
It's very interesting that his eyes lit up when you mentioned the challenge of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people would probably say, well, David's raising this proposal, but he hasn't considered the challenges, so I'm not going to take him seriously. But the moment you recognize that you are considering the challenges, and that's one of the primary attractions, that's when it becomes real.
Yes, we got serious.
Mhm. One of the things.
Purchasing
Yeah, go ahead, David. You go ahead.
Made some plans like purchasing a vehicle, Land Rover. It was going to be, as the trip was going to be mostly by land. We needed a vehicle, so we bought a very old, even in those days, it was old, 15-year-old Land Rover, which we lovingly restored to make it as perfect as possible. And we set ourselves a limit of saving £50 each, which then, even in those days, was very little and also restricted. At the time, £50 was about $120 US. So we put all that into the kitty. And then we did various things. Fortunately, our army training helped. We did various things like getting vaccinations, buying maps, buying equipment such as camp beds, tents, and various things that we knew we needed. Backpacks or rucksacks, as they used to be called years ago, and to prepare. It was going to be an expedition, but we didn't know how and where it would lead. All we knew is that we were all getting excited by the day, and we really wanted to do this. So
I think the most exhilarating part of your story, David, is the preparation
Mm.
for traveling. I think it's the same, but the way you did it, it's very different. And that was in, did you say the early 60s
correct.
when you started your plans? And by that time, you don't have any like GPS. You use the old way. So tell us. I really would love.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, there was no GPS, of course, no computers. Not We did have compass and we did have maps, and of course, it was all map reading. Yes, and telephone hardly used because telephone calls were expensive. What else didn't we have? There were so many things that we now have and make traveling so easy. But in those days, we had very
Exactly.
little, but we made it somehow made it work.
So I really would love to. Myself and the audience would love for you to tell us how. So you have this world map, right? Huge in those days. So what did you do? You go mini, mini, miny, mo, and then you put your finger. What was the process?
Um, One thing we decided we of course were going to work because leaving with such little money meant that it would be a working world tour. So we
Yeah.
had to stop here and there to work, and that led to some extraordinary and quite wonderful experiences.
Yeah.
The idea was to and to stick to primarily English-speaking countries
Okay.
because that's where life would be much easier from the point of view of work permits and communication. And so, at first, it meant leaving Europe. So, traveling through Europe for just a matter of weeks and getting used to living out of the vehicle and camping. And of course, we've done a lot of that in the army. But just feeling our way, and we mapped out a basic route, which was to cross into Africa from Europe through via Gibraltar, and then go down the west coast, drive down the west coast to one or two of the English-speaking countries, excuse me, such as Nigeria, Ghana, and hopefully get work, find jobs. And but that very quickly changed when we found one of the very first problems or issues when we found that we couldn't quite do that
Mm.
because there was the Sahara Desert was closed from in and out of Morocco. So we couldn't travel south. So we had to divert, which meant traveling right across the whole of North Africa, which consists of Morocco and Tunisia and Libya and Egypt, all the way to Egypt and take it
Wow.
from there. So we did exactly that with various adventures along the way. And then when we got to Egypt, we were told, though, to travel down the east coast because our next destination was Kenya. We thought where we felt sure we could find work, and it was just without too many limitations. But when we got to Egypt, alas, we couldn't bring. We had to ditch our vehicle, leave our vehicle behind because we couldn't afford to take it all the way through the various countries on our way to Kenya. So we left it with a kind British Embassy official who stored it and said, "You can have it when you get back." Of course, we never came back. Well, I didn't, but the guys didn't. And then we were completely on our own. It was a very sorry story, you might say. We were really pissed off about it, but no arguing with the authorities. We couldn't take that vehicle any further, so we pulled out our backpacks rucksacks and loaded them with gear. Sillily and quite silly, we forgot our mosquito nets, which would be extremely necessary.
Oh boy.
we,
Yeah.
we left quite a few things behind, but nevertheless, our backpacks were very heavy. And we hitchhiked and took a Nile steamer, which, get this, took 10 very muggy, hot, monotonous days through the famous Sud, which is an impenetrable swamp in the heart of the Sudan. And yes, that was a trip of 10 days and not to be forgotten. Eventually, and then we hitchhiked once we got into Uganda and so on. And eventually we all arrived in Nairobi and found a place. We met a Boy Scout, and he suggested that we come and stay at the Boy Scout headquarters. So we had these various invitations throughout our travels, and which was quite wonderful. And yes, we all found various jobs, which kept us in Kenya for Kenya, sometimes called Kenya by others. We stayed in there a matter of several months while we worked and saved enough money to take us then on our next leg to South Africa. This is a long-winded way of how we planned, traveled and planned accordingly as we went along. We didn't, when on leaving England, know exactly the route we were going to take, but every time we stopped to work, then we discussed it when we agreed to move on, and discussed in which direction and which countries we'd go to, bearing in mind the easiest countries to work in would be the English-speaking ones. So South Africa was our next destination. And other destinations became, as the trip increased, became places such as India and Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Latin America, etc., etc. Meanwhile, we did, the four of us that set off, we did become, for various reasons, we fell to two. One liked a place so much that he decided to stay, and the other one fell in love and got married. So two of our friends fell by the wayside, which left just two of us. And
Dave, David,
yes,
I wanted to mention, as I was listening to you, it feels like you're going to a university of your own, like the world was your university. Every stops, every experiences, and every meeting became a lessons, or
And every change
an
of plans.
education.
Mhm.
Yeah, and every change of plans became an education. And as if I'm imagining, as if I was with you at that time of traveling at age 23, how exhilarating. And was it scary? What was the concerns that you that came to mind, you and your friends, because you started with friends, and then later on in life you did this, you continued the travel on your own too. How was it for you at that time, like the lessons you've learned? And the reason I'm curious about this is I wonder for young people who are listening to this, and even young, like older people who are perhaps thinking about this,
Recent retirees. Mhm.
yeah, going and traveling. What sort of like lessons that you can share with them?
well, it's a very different world to how it was. And yes, I don't like to. I give occasional advice. I don't mind doing that, but it was basically I don't like lecturing to people. Um, we just fell into a routine and developed a sixth sense because it's the road is dangerous. There's no question, and that may be why hitchhiking stopped for many years. Funnily enough, I believe it's having a comeback. But we had our fair share of adventures and learned from them. Some extraordinary adventures, actually. And to this day, I still am not sure how I survived and got through and lived to such a ripe old age. Um, how I got to, how I didn't get malaria, for example, or one of many African diseases, that including some virtually still unknown ones. Yellow fever is another one, and being in the bush for great periods of time. How I never got malaria, I'll never know, and these other weird diseases, or hit by a truck when hitchhiking, or flying stone, as I did read and hear about other people lost their lives. There are all kinds of things that can happen when you're on the road for weeks and months at a time. But and then we split up occasionally. My good friend, my best friend Peter, because he preferred to go to some places, or sometimes work jobs took us to different directions, and then we'd stay in touch. Not quite sure how to this day, because no GPS or use of telephones.
Yeah.
But we always we stayed in touch by letter and poste restante, using main post offices, sometimes embassies, and sometimes American Express. But it was usually by a poste restante. Most main post offices in major cities have a poste restante whereby you can address letters to and have friends pick them up. We stayed in touch, excuse me, and how we reconnected. To this day, I still can't quite believe, because this happened many times during our marathon journey, and yet somehow we always connected as and when we wanted to. And so that was quite remarkable.
The world is, and in those days, it's a little bit, I think, as you mentioned earlier, very different from today.
Today.
And was it safer then, or was it?
Yes, yes. It was a much kinder, simpler,
Mm, mm,
nicer world.
mm.
Um, I have my own strong feelings about the world today, and it's quite a dark place.
Yeah.
But in this case, traveling throughout the 60s was quite different. People everywhere could not have been nicer to a young guy with a backpack arriving in their town, or walking through a park or whatever. They would come up to me and always extend a hand. They wanted just to say hi, usually to practice their English, just be very nice.
Yeah.
And I have hundreds of people to thank, because my journey was such a long one, to thank for invitations to visit their home, stay overnight, the offer of a bed. Sometimes I got a job through it, but overall, and it was quite amazing how in every country people were kind and hospitable. And of my many reviews for my book, I remember one in particular written by a fellow I know quite well. He was amazed at the kindliness of strangers that I came across throughout my travels. And yes, it was a very different world to how it is now.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit now, David, and ask you to show us your book that you wrote after you had finished your journey, and only published just recently.
Well, it's actually
Can you hold it a little bit closer,
second edition.
closer to the camera. This
With
is
pleasure.
a 1960s global odyssey.
The subtitle is perhaps more interest: Around the World in 80 Months, which was actually 6.5 years. I did count the days and nights I was away, but I can't.
I just wanted to jump ahead because you have so many remarkable stories, and one easy place for people to find them is in your book, and it's really a very well written book. You have a literary history in your family, and I think those skills, those writing skills, translated through the generations to you. You're a fantastic storyteller, and reading through your book, going through all the chapters, every adventure draws you forward to the next chapter. It's a very exciting read. It's
Thank you.
almost like
Yeah,
traveling around the world and traveling back in time when you read David's book.
yeah, yeah. And we would really love for you to order David's book. You can find it in Amazon, freezing too, and you can even order through or request in the public library. Now we are in Vancouver, so you could do that in any bookstores. You could order that. And David, remind us again: is the name of the book is
A
this the one?
1960s global odyssey, or
Okay,
Around the World in 80 Months.
around the okay. There you go. And please subscribe and follow David, uh, either in through oh let me see, through YouTube, and also through Instagram and David's website. You can definitely follow him and see the work that he's done. And you have a lot of contents in one of these social media. And so I really encourage everyone. Let's take a moment to just thank everyone for your support, and continues following us, engaging with our guests. If you haven't done so, please subscribe. It is going to help us with um, our subscription and being found, and like and leave a comment. So we are just about to the very end. And David, we ask our guests all the time, because just listening to you, I was thinking, oh my word, we need part two, part three, or even part 10. And so we would love for you to come back and tell another part of your journey as a world traveler, adventurer, um, and invite us to this trip of a lifetime. And so we can really see, maybe for those who are thinking about where to go, maybe in that part two stories they say, oh, I think I'm going to that, because I heard this from David. And so, David, would we would love to have you back. Would you like to come back and join us again?
Oh, yes, with great pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
And thank you for having
Um,
me.
y- Absolutely. And this is such incredible, David. My word, I heard your story before, when I met you, and hearing this again, it's such an incredible, inspiring story. Really.
And
Thank you
one of the
very
things
much.
that occurred to me as I thought about it is that you have something, a real treasure, something that most people don't have. You can actually go back to that point in your life and reread your own book. And I realize that you have done this many times and effectively travel in time back to when you were a younger person. Now, you can do this by keeping a journal, but what David did was to keep detailed notes as he was traveling and then preserve them in the form of a book. And you wrote the book when you were about 30 years old, is that right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
then it sat in a drawer for a while, I believe.
Yes. Sat in a drawer for many, many years. But I've since learned, being something of a writer, I've used writing in my life in many, many ways, that this happens very often. Some of the very best books, I'm not suggesting mine is, but some of the very best books are sadly missed by publishers, which is why one reason why so many books, including mine, are now self-published these days, because
Mhm.
a lot of publishers overlook some books and they never see the light of day. But was determined that eventually I would tell my story, and I have done so. And what we have not discussed in this chat, very, very pleasant chat, is what I did when I eventually got home. I had such itchy feet. My wanderlust was stronger than ever, and I was getting homesick for Asia, for Africa, for Australasia. I wanted to go back. I needed to go back. So I did the only thing I was qualified for to do. I joined the travel industry, where I remained
Mm.
for
Yeah.
45 years. And for much of that time, running my own small company, uh, fully escorted tours. I led various tours, roughly 200, which is no record, but roughly 200, more or less close to 100 to Africa. Africa was my specialty for the next, as I said, 45 years. And here I am now, fully retired and not
Yes,
traveling.
and as you were building that career and marketing your services as a safari leader, you also published numerous articles and blog posts through your website. So if people want to get a sample of your writing without having to buy the whole book, they can go to your website and have a look there, and that will probably entice them to buy the book.
And I wrote newsletters. I was the first in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, to write business newsletters for a period of 35 years. That was
Wow.
the main way I stayed in touch with my clients.
That's amazing, David. You really um, you exemplify, you know, you embody this we call modern seniors, because even though in this time of your life you're not slowing down. I mean, you're slowing down in some ways, but your mind, it's so incredibly beautiful, active, and creative. um I wonder how you keep up all of this momentum, this energy.
Um, I'm quite pleased. I'm very pleased that I've lived this long, because I never thought I would live to my mid 80s. Um, but one of the reasons for my longevity, so to speak, is I spend a lot of time in exotic places and sunny places, warm climates. And I've been careful with my diet, and I'm just naturally an exerciser. I just do a lot of walking, and I used to run, but nothing special. And but I am
Mm.
quite uh, careful with my diet. Lots of fruits and vegetables, everything that the experts tell us we should be doing.
Yeah.
But I've had my share of issues, medical issues, such as I've had both hips replaced, but that didn't stop me. I still led tours for a little while, not with crutches, but a
Yeah.
cane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had various health issues, but I've always managed to get through them. And yeah, I'm quite content with where I am at this particular age and stage in life.
Another
Yeah.
thing that I've noticed about you is that you're a fantastic social connector. You were the one who welcomed me into the community at Kerrisdale Senior Center, for one small example. But yes, you're very connected socially, and in my work with me, with Beyond the Conversation, for example, that is one of our key aims, is to promote health by encouraging people to build communities, build their own communities, and to stay connected. Do you have any tips for our viewers or listeners about that? Challenging question.
I'm not socially very active. Always was, and probably always will be, something of a loner. But I do believe in reaching out to people my age And for a long time, I did some voluntary work. I don't do so much now, but I did. Um, and I'm a great believer in just being very friendly and nice to people, and that seems to work. But I don't have any specific tips.
Well, David, your life story, I hope some young people can, when they're listening to this, that they can be encouraged, and you do not need to start. You can start at any age, and you don't have to stop because of gray hair. That's not a reason to stop engaging yourself. And David has proven this. And David, your story, I think I'm seriously, really, really want to see you back again because your story is just so incredibly amazing. And we have not even touched the countries, all of the countries that you have explored. How many in all? If you can remember, how many countries in all that you actually traveled to or have seen?
Uh, During my early world tour, my 80-month odyssey, I never did count, but I think it was in the region of 65, 70. But I've seen
Oh,
many since then because I was in the travel business for so long. But,
right.
yes, it was roughly 65 or 70 during my
Yeah.
original world tour.
And you stayed for extended periods in some countries and
Several,
worked there.
yes, yes. Some teaching in Japan. I was there for 6 months. Lived in New
Uh-huh.
Zealand, working with sheep and farming. Um, was also 6 months. Australia 9 months. South Africa was the longest, 14 months. Kenya was
Wow.
9 months. Colombia, South America was 3 months. So yes, I did live and work in various places, and there's a very big
Yeah.
difference, I might add, in between working and living in a place and just passing through or visiting as a tourist.
Yeah. I think I remember, David, the reason why you end up going to these places and working there, because it part of that, it was your desire to integrate and assimilate within the country or the city you're living in. And part of that too is I think remember part of that too is financial, making sure that you, yeah.
Saved
And
enough
part,
money to move on.
right. One of the stories that I think I'm just going to mention, but feel free to add, maybe this is another time too, is that I heard you shared once that you're sleeping inside the police
Police stations.
eh, stations. Oh, that's wild. That's incredible. Tell us a little bit about that, and then
And actually
and
in
then
jail cells
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, that was quite common. It happened once we left our Land Rover in Egypt and started hitchhiking. At the end of the day, which was quite successful, mostly by on the tops of trucks, Egyptians being very Egyptian truck drivers being very friendly and helpful.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, we'd arrive in some town alongside the Nile that we had very limited funds, but we had to find a place to stay. And growing up in the UK, where we were always taught as children, if you were ever lost or needed the answer to a question, you always ask a policeman.
mm,
I did find out, however, that in many countries they're the last people you go to. But generally speaking, that most police officers are
yeah.
still have a very good reputation
Mm,
in most countries of the world.
right.
And so we went to the nearest police station, ostensibly to leave our backpacks while we walked around looking for somewhere to stay. But the sergeant or the corporal on duty knew enough so we split up by the way to initially hitchhiking because it was much easier to hitchhiked just two and two rather than
Yeah.
four together, of course.
Yeah.
So we and myself and Pete, we found ourselves at the police station and told the officer on duty that we were looking for a place to stay. And yes, an immediate invitation, come and stay here. I think it was on the floor in the main office in our sleeping bags. But nevertheless, we were in a safe place and we had a roof over our heads. And yeah, we spent the night there. And because that worked so well, we did it in a few other places. And one of the most memorable was arriving in Cape Town. No, yes, Cape Town, and also in Kenya, asking the same question, doing exactly the same thing, which was report to a police station and ask and actually about where we could stay. And on two occasions, once in Cape Town and once in Nairobi, Kenya, um, we, we not only spent the night, each time, and one night was in a cell, a locked cell, I might add, but we were just by ourselves. We weren't with any criminals. And believe it or not, the sergeant or the corporal on duty on two occasions, as I just said, we were served a full English Western breakfast, bacon and eggs with orange juice, and maybe even coffee.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Amazing. Oh, man.
But eventually, of course, we could afford to stay in places, and then we mostly stayed in very inexpensive hotels and youth hostels and cheap and guest houses and B&Bs. Wherever the price was reasonable, that's where we would stay.
Yeah. Well, this is an incredible story, David. Thank you so much for agreeing to come back, because I think for me, I when you're telling your story as if I am with you, and I get excited about the story, and this is why Beyond the Modern Seniors came about, because it's that kind of stories that we wanted to preserve. It's that kind of background that I think need a platform. And anyone who is interested, we invite you, if you have a story, and or you have a friend that you want to invite, we invite you to let us know. And the email is down below, bcmodernseniors@gmail.com. David, we wanted to thank you. Neil and I are so grateful that you were able to come today and share your stories. And Neil, thank you so much for co-hosting, and thank you for joining us here at Beyond Studio.
Yeah.
Our stories continue,
And David,
and we need to walk. Yeah,
and to our audience,
go ahead,
just
Neil.
if you want to, if you have any questions for David, I think you can get hold of him via his website. Is that right, David?
Or my email, David Skillan at hotmail.com, or David at skillansafaris.com.
Yeah. And you can also, of course, email us at BC Modern Seniors, and we will pass on your message. If you would like to see anyone else on the show who has stories similar to David's, or if you have any questions for David, then please feel free to contact him directly or to contact him through us.
Mm-hmm. So,
Thank
David,
you very much to both of you.
Our pleasure. So every triumph, every shadow, and every lesson can be a bridge of hope for another. Until next time, stay true, stay engaged, and keep sharing your heart, because this is where we all belong. Thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, David. And we would love to have you back.
And thank you, Amy and Neil. Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.